Welcome everybody at the 71st session. Hey, it's not moving. Yeah, that's coming. It's a bit slow today, I guess. Maybe it's me being slow. Welcome you all. Good afternoon, good evening, good late evening. I saw some people moving in. Maybe good morning even. And today on our show, we have Kamil Sacek. And he will talk about, as the title explains, application versions and dependencies and how to handle things. It's, of course, becoming more and more a challenge if you have multiple apps, but I'm sure the part of how to automate things, etc. But I leave that to Kamil to discuss, of course. As always, a slide on the housekeeping rules. Be welcome to be involved by posing questions, but yes, your microphone is muted, so use the GoToWebinar question window. Me, Luc van Vugt, I'm your moderator today, and I will pick up questions. We agreed that if they're directly in the context, I will post them, but probably will keep them to the end, as there's a quite tight, program today. So don't let that hold you from posing questions, and if we can't get it addressed during this session today, we'll do that offline. As always, this will be recorded. Probably I'll get it online this evening already, but if not, well, I will put a tweet out on Twitter and let you know once it's there. But of course, you can monitor it yourself. And as you can see, although, yeah, I'm Dutch and I don't have my settings changed, but it says that we have 998 subscriptions, almost 1,000. So if you want to be the 1,001, give it a try if you're not yet subscribed to this channel. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, use this URL. I think half of the people subscribe to our YouTube channel is subscribed to the newsletter. So feel free if you didn't yet. Then you are the first one to know what is ahead in the next whatever time when things have not been planned yet. But we did plan a number of webinars. The one today, of course, and then in 14 days' time, Shannon Mullins will do her webinar. 2 weeks later, Xavi will talk about his topic. And then again, 2 weeks later, we have Tine. And then again, 2 weeks later, we have Arjan Kaufman. We had to reschedule this session because of his planning. It was originally scheduled for next week, but as you can see, we moved it later. And I'm working on another webinar with Waldo, and Kamil might step in with some other interesting topics later on too, so it's still being worked on. And of course, don't hold yourself back. If you have nice ideas and you even want to be a speaker, well, feel free to become one and let me know. Of course, there's room enough in this season still to be filled up. And before I'm going to hand over to you, Kamil, and of course, a very welcome to you, I'm going to thank our sponsor again for enabling us to do this. And then I'm going to make you presenter.
Okay, thanks. Hello, everyone. I hope that you can see my screen now.
Yes, I do.
Okay. My name is Kamil Sacek. I'm product development manager at NaVer company from Czech Republic, and I'm MVP very long time already. And why I decided to make this webcast about the application versions and dependencies and how to handle them. It started with one tweet I had with some poll about the dependency policies and so on, and I saw that many people maybe don't realize some facts, how to work with the dependencies correctly and with the versions. And I will try to discuss this topic today. It will be divided to 5 parts. I hope, yeah, we are moving. First, we will talk about the version systems, or how we are creating the version, the number for our apps, because there are multiple ways how you can do that. And then we will go through different ways. And at the end, we will talk about the main part, what does it mean for us, for the pipelines, for the automations, how to handle the dependencies, because if you are working with multiple applications which have dependencies between them, or you are, for example, working with some apps from other vendors, it's good to know possible tools you can use to automatize this work, because it will help you to spend time on something else than just solving the dependencies. Version systems. How the versions could look like, or what the standard version number looks like. We know that mostly it's 4 numbers divided by point, and maybe there is some optional suffix at the end, but you can find out on the internet that different parts are named differently, not for the first numbers, major and minor version. It's clear, but the third and fourth, sometimes it's named build and patch, sometimes the revision and build, sometimes build and revision. It doesn't matter too much. It's on you how you will name it, but we need to think about these numbers, because it will help us to work with the dependencies correctly. That's the basic. But how we are working with the versions for our extensions. If you work with multiple partners, if you look at the app source and see the versions of the apps there, you can see different ways how to create the version. First, I name it as an independent system. It means the vendor, someone who is creating the app, is totally in charge of how the version looks like. Mostly you start with version 1.0 and you increment it somehow to some higher numbers, and it's totally on you. It's not connected to some versions of Business Central, for example, for which the app is compatible. That's the independent system. The problem is that you cannot see this connection to BC version. It means if you see application version 1.1, you don't know if you can run it with BC 14, BC 19, or BC 22. And you need to know this from other source, like dependency on some package or documentation or some metadata published as some file as a part of some package. Second system is dependent extension version system, where we can connect the major version of our app with the BC major version for which the app is compatible. Yeah, we can connect even the minor version with the BC. It means we are using even which cumulative update we are compatible with as a part of our version of our app. But it has some impact, because if you use both the major and minor, same as BC, you have only 2 numbers in the version you can control and you can work with. And when we go later through some other parts like semantic versioning and Nuget packages, you can see that you have only 3 parts of the version. It means if you connect major and minor with the BC version, you have only 1 version number you can control, and it's not too much. This is a possible thing, but in some cases it could be good, because on the first side you see the compatibility of the app. If I see app with version 21.3, at least I know that it will be compatible with BC 21. I don't know if the 3 here is that I need cumulative update 3 of the BC or not. I need to know from the vendor if it is connected to the version of BC or not. Yeah, it must be somehow stated by the vendor. But it is possible, and I see that as a better way, because it has some positive things. But maybe someone don't like these ways how to connect the application versions, your extension versions, with BC version. For me, it's a basic question. If I imagine that I have one app, for example, which I created, and it is totally separated from the standard BC. It has some functionality which is not connected to Microsoft application. It's just doing something. And for example, I don't need to touch this extension for five years. And I connected the version of this app somehow with the version of BC. How I will handle this app when there are new versions of BC? Will I create new version for this application, and I don't need to change anything in that app? I just need to have the same major version, for example, of that app with the BC. Will I create new version? Is it really necessary? Because I can see that as a big overload to the system, to all the automations, to everything, to support, to create new version just because Microsoft released something new. Yeah, and if I connect it even the minor version, it means I will need to think about that for every cumulative update of BC, and this is something I don't like. Yeah, because I don't want to create new version when it is not really necessary. And of course, if I have version 21.3.1234.1 and 22.0.1234.1, does it mean that it's same application, same version with same functionality, but compatible with version 21.3 and 21.0, or it is totally different version with totally different functions inside? Yeah, I don't know if I compare these two version numbers, and it's another problem. Yeah, because version number should tell you if the app is compatible with some preview version or not, if it is somehow extended in the functionality, it is backward compatible or not with the previous version, and so on. Those are things we want to know from the version number, and in this case, it's not clear. That's dependent extension version. As a third number, we are mostly using some build or revision number. Many vendors, many producers of the extensions are using different systems to handle this part. I saw already some systems connected to date and time, like year, month, day, hour, or something like that. Or you can have some days since number of days since some date, or any other time span used for this number. Another possibility is to use, for example, counter from Azure DevOps, build.build.id, which is a global counter for the pipelines, which is incrementing by every pipeline you run in your account on Azure DevOps. Or you can use, for example, the counter function, which creates a counter for some variable. If the variable changed value, the counter will be reset to 0 and will increase with every call. That's another possibility. Of course, there are other possibilities, but I think those are the most used, and depends on what you will use. There are some limitations how many releases you can do in some time span. For example, if you use this numbering with date and hour, you can create only one release per hour, for example, if you do it in that way. But it's just some introducing which possible ways we have, but it doesn't matter too much. Everyone can select what suits you most. But there are some standardized versioning system, and the most used is semantic versioning. Today it's in version 2, and it's using only 3 numbers to make the version: major, minor, and patch. And I think it's very good to use these numbering. We will see that using only 3 numbers for the version is good because, for example, Nuget package system is using only 3 numbers in the version 2. Yeah, we don't need the 4th number here, and we will be compatible with this packaging system. There are some basic rules how to handle these versions. You are changing the major, increasing the major when you are making the API, the public interface of your app, backward incompatible. It means you are doing some breaking changes, then you need to change the major version. That's one rule. If you are changing some functionality in the public interface in backward compatible manner, it means it's still compatible with the previous versions. You are incrementing just minor version. If you are just doing some bug fixes and so on, still backward compatible, you are incrementing the patch number. And if you increment something, you reset the lower numbers to 0. It means if I increment major, minor is 0, patch is 0. If I increment minor, I will 0 patch. Those are the basic rules of the semantic versioning. It's clear for the developer when he needs to change what. Yeah, and that's the basic thing we need, because developers needs to handle the versions in same way. There is a detailed specification of the semantic versioning on that URL. No problem with reading through that. It's not so long reading. It's prepared in multiple languages for you, and I recommend to go through it. There is one notice: if you are using, for example, the build ID as a build number in your version. The running global counter in Azure DevOps, it makes your version semantic versioning incompatible. You are not keeping in line with the last rule here, that you need to 0 the lower numbers if you change something. It means if you are using the build ID, which is still incrementing, you are not going to 0 when you change the minor, and you are using the build ID as a patch number here, the 3rd number. If you increment minor, the patch still will be not 0. It means we are breaking this rule, and we are not using semantic versioning, but it doesn't matter too much for me. Still, it could be done. It works, but just it's not semantic versioning. It's something else. Because these different things, we created some rules for ourselves in Navertica, and I named that system as a NaVer instead SemVer, because it has some specifics. We are doing versioning in that way. We have BC major number as a first version number in our versions. It means if the app is compatible with version BC 21, there will be 21. If we upgrade the application for 22, we will increment the major to 22. And because we are still trying to keep all the rules from the semantic versioning, it means we can do the breaking changes only during upgrade of the app, compatibility upgrade of the app to new version of BC. It means 2 times per year. It's not a problem to do breaking changes only 2 times per year if Microsoft allows us to do breaking changes at all. Minor version is under control of the developer, and minor is incremented manually by developer when changing the public interface. It means adding some public function, field, table, or a new object. Developer is incrementing the minor version in the app.json file and committing that change. As a 3rd number, we are using the build ID. It means the global counter in Azure DevOps. It means it's generated automatically. It means that's why we are breaking the semantic rules here, but we don't care about that. It's working for us correctly. And we are using the patch, but only in exceptional cases, because we are using the patch only when we are doing some firefighting and we are deploying some new version of the app directly to some environment. It's really exceptional, and it's really just in case of firefighting, we need to do something now, and we can't wait till the pipelines end, because the pipelines takes, for example, 30 minutes to finish all the tests and so on until we have a released version of the app, and we need to do it quickly. We can use the patch number to have new version of the app and deploy it directly to target environment. Yeah, that's really exceptional. The rules are simple. Developers are stick on these rules, and they don't have a problem to keep them. And I want to emphasize that you need to have simple rules, because if there are some complex rules, developers will not keep them and will not work with them. When we are doing some dependencies in between the apps, we are using only the major and minor version in the app.json. It means the dependency is, for example, 20.2.0.0, because it will allow us to build new version of the app and still be used by these dependencies. Because maybe you know, if you are too specific with the version in dependencies, Microsoft will require you to have the specific version of the app, even when you will be okay with newer version too. Yeah, that's a problem. If you work only with the major and minor version, it's not a problem to have newer version with new build released, and it will still work in the dependencies. For us, every pipeline run creates new version of the application. If the pipeline, which is creating release of the app, finish, it produced new version of the app, even when there is no change in the code. Yeah, because if nobody changed the minor and major, we will still have a new build number here on the third position, because the global counter. And why it is like that? Because, for example, I can change the tools, the pipelines. Microsoft will release new BC container helper or something which could have an impact how the app file was generated. And I need to have a new version, because the app could be different than the previous one. And I don't want to have two files which have same version but different content. I don't want to have that. That's why every finished release pipeline or pipeline which is producing the app file is creating new version for that app. And we are not limited how many builds we can do in some time span, because we are using the global counter here. What you want to, or how to choose the correct version system. It's mostly about what suits you most, but you need to think about these things I was talking about. Use system which works with first three numbers, and we will see in the last part why. And think about the upgrade process, because, for example, our versioning is working in a way that if my app is compatible with version 21, it have major 21. If it is still compatible even with 22, I will not create new app with version 22 in major. I will still have 21. And if it is not compatible with 23, I will create new version of my app with major version 23. It means I will skip the 22. And if I look at all the versions of my app, I will see I have version 21, and then I have version 23. And I know that it means that 21 is compatible even with 22, and I don't need to generate new version just because it is compatible with PC version 22. Think about the maintenance, because don't overload yourself by maintaining the versions just because you need to maintain them somehow, and you are not touching the code. And you need to think about this even to be able to automatize most of the parts of your development. And some version systems are not so easy to automatize. But we need to go to the main part of today's webcast: versions and pipelines. Because what I see, or what I saw in some pipelines, and even in our pipelines, we had a problem. We had a problem that our pipelines were working in some way, and later we had a problem with the dependencies. And I was analyzing all the case, and I find out that we are not working correctly with the version numbers. And when we are working with the versions during the development, because developer needs to set the application version in the app.json and set the correct dependency version manually during the development. During the build, it means the pipeline which is building the application and compiling it. There you are setting the version of the app, for example, the build part of the version, and you are checking the correct dependencies. During the tests, if you are running the test, you are installing all the dependencies, running the automated test. You need to have the correct dependencies installed. Yeah? And during release, again, we are creating some package which should have a correct version, and we are checking correct dependencies on the target system, for example, or we are installing the needed dependencies on the target system. And everything needs to be in line and work correctly, because we don't want to have errors that we are missing some dependency, or we are calling some function which doesn't exist in the depending application. And there are two policies how to handle the dependencies regarding their version. There is a lowest policy, which means we are downloading the lowest version we required as a dependency. It means I don't care that there are newer version. I'm using the one which I required as a minimum in my app.json in the dependency section. It means I have a dependency on application B version 21.2. The process will take 21.2 and maybe some build number, but the lowest one. It's mostly, we are using this mostly during the compile to check that the dependency are correctly set. And in a while, we will see in some animation how it works and why we should do that. And during my poll on the Twitter, this was not used by many who answered to my poll, because everyone is using the highest policy. It means take the newest app, and take the newest regardless what I'm requiring in my dependency in my app.json. Highest policy takes the newest package, newest application which exists, and of course it's okay. It's good policy too. We want to be up to date. We want to test our application with the latest versions. It's okay, but sometimes in this case we have a problem. We have a problem that we take too much or too recent application version, and maybe it's already upgraded with compatibility for some new BC version, but we are compiling application for older BC, and then we have a problem. Even the highest policy has these problems, and we need to solve them somehow. And by somehow, I mean mostly in some automatic way. Lowest policy, highest policy. How it works? I have application A and application B. Application A has as a dependency application B. I have some version 21.0 of my application B. If I compile application A, I have dependency on version 21.0. It's not a problem. Lowest policy and the highest policy will take that version because there is no other version existing in my portfolio. Then someone creates new version of the application B where some new function is added. New function, public function we can use, and the developer incremented the minor version of this app. It means we have new version 21.1 with some build number. And when we recompile our application A without any change in that application, we just recompiled it. The lowest policy will take the old version. The highest policy will take the new version. That's the different things. And of course, result should be same. Still, application A will work and everything is okay. Tests will run with this version or this version. It's not a problem. But then developer comes and use the new function from the version 21.1. This new version is used in our app. And then when we compile, the lowest policy will fail because it will take this version when the function X doesn't exist. But the highest will still work. And that's the problem, because if we are using only highest, we are okay. But then you will take that app, release it to some environment where 21.0 version of app B is installed. It will install or it will fail during the compile when you are publishing, because dependency will tell you everything is okay, but the compilation tells you there is no function X. And we will say, why it is failing? You will need to go through that, and you will find then, okay, yeah, we have added that in version 21.1, and we don't have it installed it on the target environment. But you can do another change. Someone upgraded the application B to be compatible with BC version 22. And even in this case, the highest policy will fail because we are compiling from 21 and we will download a dependency which is not compatible with 21 because it requires 22 BC version. It means we are now failing on lowest version, we are failing on highest version from different reasons, but it doesn't matter. We are failing. We can fix it. If I change the dependency version in my app.json here to 21.1, which is correct version because in this version the function X was introduced, the lowest policy will be working correctly. We will compile, we can install everything, and everything will work. It means the lowest policy here is checking if our dependency version is correct. If we are not compiling with the lowest policy, nobody cares about the dependencies in the app.json with the dependency versions here, because highest will work mostly. And you will have wrong required versions here. It was exactly the case in our cases. We were working with the highest only. Then I realized that it's not correct. I fixed the pipeline to use the lowest version, and then half of the pipelines started to fail without any change in the app, just because the dependencies were wrong in these apps, because developers were not changing them correctly. But the problem is, yep.
The one question from Thomas Hüttner, directly relating to this. He's asking if you use function X in your app A. Yeah, so that's what you're at the moment at. Shouldn't you depend on that? In this case, that's a build number, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep.
That introduced that function in the first place. So is there an issue right now happening because of not having a 0 on place 3 in the app dependency?
Yes, no, because I'm not depending on that build exactly. I can put here the exact build. The problem is that in some cases Microsoft will require this specific build. It means when I will install something newer, 21.1. Some new build, because I recompiled, for example, the build through the pipelines, and I will have a new build number, it will not take it as a correct version for my dependency, and it will require this specific build and nothing newer. Yeah, that's the problem.
Implicitly, you're saying 21.1 always starts with the change. It's always a following number that has function X in it, so you will never have an issue there.
Exactly. Because developer will increment this minor to version 1 when adding some public function. Yeah, he's changing the public interface. Yeah. It means he needs to increment the minor version. That's the rule. If he forgot, we have a problem, because we can't set correctly the dependency, and we need to really hook this dependency to the build. But then we have a problem with the newer version, because we are hooked to this specific build and we will not accept anything newer. That's the problem. And we of course were in these cases already a few times.
Yeah. Thanks from Thomas.
Yep. Still, we have a problem here with the highest. And it's not easy how to fix that, because we need somehow to limit the highest to take only apps which are still compatible with base app lower than 22. It means 21 BC. Yeah, and it's really not easy. Depends on what you are using, how your process looks like. But to solve that, we started to use the Nuget packages and manager which is named Paket. And we will look at that later. But still want to show you that even when someone creates new version for 21 BC and increment new version, for example, because added some new table, still everything works, because if we have a highest limited to just apps which are compatible with our BC, it will work correctly. We will take this newer version and we will compile. Yeah, this is the big problem: how to limit the base app requirement of the dependency. Just some summary for the pipelines and how to use the lowest and highest policy, and how to use the correct versions. Really, you need to select which version parts are manual, which developers are changing and how, and which are automatic, because those are maintained by your pipelines. In our cases, minor is manual things, build number is automatic thing. Dependency version must be correctly maintained, and mostly I recommend to use only major and minor part. Like you are using for a Microsoft application, if you are depending on some change from some cumulative update, you are just using the minor version of the cumulative update. You are not using the specific build, because then you will not install it on newer build than this one. Yeah, it's same like any other dependency in our application, and that's the same rule. BC compatibility limitation. If I will use the independent versioning, for example, for my application, which don't have any connection to the BC version, I don't have any easy way how to limit the compatibility with the BC, with the platform, and to choose only the correct version of the app I want to use during the compilation. Yeah, if I'm compiling for version 21, how I will limit when I don't have even the number in the version. If I have the version of the BC as a major version, at least I can use directly this in the numbering. It means I can manually or somehow limit, give me all the or the newest version of this dependency having my major version 21. Yeah, I can limit it based on the version, at least if I have depending versioning. But still, it's about tools we can use, and I highly recommend to use Nuget packages to use as a delivery system and a release system. What is Nuget? If you don't know that, just want to introduce you this system. Nuget was created for sharing code between developers and companies. It was developed by Microsoft for .NET applications, but we can easily use it for BC extensions too. Because Nuget is nothing else than zip archive with some different extension in the name. It includes distributed files. It means there is just the app file of your application inside the zip and some metadata, some manifest for the package inside this zipped archive. And the metadata includes the data about direct dependencies. Only the direct dependencies. It means if my app have these dependencies, only these direct dependencies are inside the metadata. If these apps have other dependencies, their package will have this dependency inside, and so on. This package will have dependency for G and E. E will have dependency to B, and so on. It's only one level, your direct dependency only, and it helps you to manage these apps as a separate things and correctly work with the versions and correctly download all the apps you need to compile your app. Creating the Nuget package is very easy because you need to just create XML file which have extension nuspec which describe the package. It's easy. There are multiple things like author of the package, name of the package, ID of the package, and the dependencies. It's easy to create. And then just you call Nuget pack command, and it will create the new package for you. There is a limitation that the Nuget support only the semantic versioning. It means it is using only the major, minor, and patch number. It is not using the fourth number in the version. And that's why I recommend even your apps to use only these three numbers in the version. It's why in our system, the fourth number, the patch, we are using only in the cases when we are deploying the app directly during the firefighting to the environment, because we will not be able to use it in the pipeline because we are producing the Nuget packages during our pipelines. Yeah. And you need to realize that, and you need to think about that, because it will change everything. If you are using the fourth number as a build number or something, you have a problem here. it's about Nuget. You can distribute the Nuget through different things, but I think it's about for another webcast, maybe later during the year or somewhere to talk about Nuget at all, because we can talk about many things in this case. But right now, just limit it to how to create it, XML file called Nuget package and Nuget pack, and we have a package. There is one thing about the naming of the Nuget packages, because you can name it in any way you want. The name of the package is on you. And because there is some agreement between BC developers right now, I recommend to use the vendor underscore and app name with replacing of the typical characters like parentheses or some special characters. Replace them by underscore. Yeah. If we keep it in the same way, it will be not a problem to automatize to download of all the dependencies. Because if I know in app.json that I am depending on this vendor app with this name, I can create the package name of that application. And if the vendor publish his app as a Nuget package, I can connect to the source of this Nuget package, and I can automatically download this package for me. Yeah, automatically, just based on the app.json file from my BC application. And I will really like to have that functionality in between the vendors, because then we can connect all our sources to some network and download the dependencies easily in some automatized way, in some controlled way, because the owner of the source will be able to somehow limit who is downloading his apps and so on. The problem is that for GitHub goes in his own way. Freddy is, at least for now, is using naming AL, Go, and app ID. And I don't like it too much, because the name of the package is not understandable, because you need to know the app ID of the app you are looking for. You need to know that the vendor is using ALGO to know that it has this format. And it's a problem. Yeah? If someone is not using ALGO, the name will be different. And it will mean that you will need to prepare your pipeline for different vendor sources, because when you are generating the dependency or generating the command for the Nuget to download the package, you will need the rule how to generate the name of the package from the app.json file you have. I recommend to add as a dependency to the Nuget package the dependency on the Microsoft base app. Sorry. It means you will be able to limit which basic application version compatible you want to use when looking for the correct version of the app. Because, and we will see it in the next slides, if there is a dependency on the Microsoft application, because in your app.json there is the property application, which makes the dependency on Microsoft application app. Yeah. If that is part of the Nuget package dependency, you can limit how the commands which are choosing which versions of the dependencies will be downloaded. You can limit, give me please all the versions which are compatible only with the application, Microsoft application version 22, and it will not give you app which needs 23 version, for example, of the app. It means it is dependency, it should be in the dependencies. And again, we need to somehow standardize the name of the package, because if I will create my my packages depending on Microsoft_application, and someone else will have the dependency on ALGO up ID of the Microsoft application, it will not work. Yeah, we will need to take all the cases in our pipelines, program some exceptions, and so on. And because the dependency must exist in the feed where all the packages are, you need to create fake packages for Microsoft app in the feed. And of course, it will be nice if Microsoft creates the feed with all the packages for us, and we will be just depending on their source of Nuget packages for all the apps. It will be really nice. But for now, we need to fake it at least. Just create Microsoft application package, which is empty. It doesn't need to contain anything, just the metadata that it is Microsoft application package with some version, and that's all. Yeah. Those are things about the Nuget, how we can create some packages, and how then we can download it in our pipeline when we need to download the dependencies. It's really easy, because there is something which is named Paket. Paket is a manager not only for the Nuget sources, but even for others. But we can take it as a Nuget manager, Nuget client for our purpose. It's easy to use. It gives you better graph resolving. It means if you give him info, I need these packages with these versions, it will have much better way how to find the correct version for you than just standard Nuget, because standard Nuget have only, okay, give me all the lowest version or highest version, but you can't limit. For example, give me all the highest version, but limiting for Microsoft application less than 22. And it works in a way that you create just one text file, packet.dependencies, which looks like that. And you can see that it's really easy to generate, because there is a URL of the Nuget server from which you want to have these packages. There could be multiple sources. And you can say, okay, give me Nuget package with this name, with version less than 22. It means this is the limitation for us. Give me everything which is supporting or is depending on 21 version of Microsoft application or lower. Don't give me 22 because I'm compiling for 21 version. In this case, we can have some optional attributes. That's storage none. It means don't download Microsoft application for me. I don't care about this package. I just want to limit the graph resolving to this version, but don't give me take the maximum version of the application, but still lower than 22, and that's all. And I'm depending on application package, and I want to have higher or equal this version. And in some cases, I can say, okay, I want 21.4, but less than 22.0, for example. This operator means this limitation. That's all what we write into the text file, and then we call just packet install. Packet install will read this file, will contact the source, will resolve all the dependencies, and will download all the packages, and will extract them to the folder. And it means at the end, I have all the apps in the folder I choose, with all the dependencies, with the correct versions, limited to, for example, supporting Microsoft application version 21. It will create some additional files and folders, but I can just delete them because I don't need to use them for Business Central. And then I can just compile my app or deploy these dependencies to my target environment and so on. And I can choose if I want to resolve this dependency with the lowest policy or highest policy, like here we are choosing the strategy for this one line. We can put this strategy on the beginning, and it will automatically apply to any line here. It's very easy, and I'm using it for last 6 months in our pipelines. It's working like a charm. With all the limitations for the Microsoft application, it means we are not having the failure just because we are downloading newer version than we are compiling for, and so on. And I recommend to look into that part, because it will help you really automatize the process of handling the dependencies in your pipelines. Okay, we are nearly at the end, and I see that we have only 5 minutes. It means I think it's we are on time, and we will have time for some questions. Conclusion: select best versioning schema for your apps. Every time it could be different for different company, because you have some different background, different processes, different products. For example, it could be different for ISV, it could be different for VAR, because we have different requirements for our processes. But still think about the fact that some packaging, for example, can support only 3 numbers in the version. You need somehow include the information about compatibility with BC version, if it is part of the version, or it is part of the package dependencies, or if it is part somewhere in the metadata file. It could be okay, but again, if you are cooperating with other partners, try to keep these things somehow compatible. It means I will prefer the way of using, for example, Nuget packages by any partner, because we can be compatible in between us in this way. If someone is using some own metadata file somewhere, it will be a problem for others to understand that and somehow change their pipelines to use these systems. Define simple rules for your developers. Developers must understand when they should change the version number of the app if they are touching something. Yeah. The semantic versioning in this way is really easy to understand, and I think developers should not have a problem to understand it. It's used by it's used in all the other languages, and I think it's really standard today. Keep the versions and dependency versions correct. It means during the pipelines, test with the lowest strategy to test if the dependency is correctly set. Because if it is not correctly set, you will download some older dependency which don't have the necessary functionality for your app, and the compilation will fail. If then developer comes and say, yeah, I have a problem with the pipeline, it's telling me that this function is not existing there. Okay, check your dependency version. Do you see that this version was added in version 21.5? Why you are requesting version 21.3? Yeah, it's understandable that then it will not find this function in the dependent application. It's good to test with the lowest and the highest policy, because lowest is checking the dependency, highest is checking our compatibility with newer version of all the depending application. Use a Nuget as a source of dependencies, because it will allows you to automatize this resolving the versions. Use Nuget as a package for other partners, because it will be easier to distribute the packages for all the partners which are building on top of your solution. Add Microsoft application dependency to the Nuget package, because it will allows you to limit the resolution of the versions correctly for specific Microsoft version. and use the Paket manager instead Nuget, because you will have this additional feature to limit the version's resolution to specific compatible Microsoft application. Because Nuget can't do that. It will give you every time the latest, even when it is not compatible with the version you need. That's all from my side. And if there are some questions, Luc, we can go.
There is a question from Marcus Nordlund. How do you deal with the problem that two dependencies depend on a different version of C? So when you get the trees, let's say, analyzed, you end up with two versions in that tree. And then he puts, I guess you use the highest one dependency once dependency are downloaded.
Yep. If I look at this chart here, I have my app. It depends on C, and I'm using D. It uses E, and E use C. And of course, this E could request, for example, C number 1.1. I request 1.3. In this case, depends on which manager for the download of the Nuget package you will use. Because Nuget, I think, will take the latest, but the Paket will have some more smart way how to check which version will be downloaded. Nuget, I think, is giving priority to the direct dependency. It means if I request version 1.1, I think it will prefer 1.1. I'm not sure in this way, but totally I have no problem with the Paket, because Paket will take, if there is 1.1 and there is 1.3 requested, it will download 1.3. And it should be okay, because if we are backward compatible, it should work in this way. But of course, it could mean that you will not test correctly the dependency version in your app, because you have 1.1, you want to have a function from 1.3. Here it's request 1.3, it will download 1.3, you will compile okay, but still the dependency in your app JSON is wrong. It could be a problem, but still you have more options. And I'm not sure how the exact procedure, how the dependency resolving is used by Paket and Nuget. But for Paket, it is described exactly how it works, and you can read it in the manual. And I think it's still better than the Nuget.
Yeah, you haven't run into an issue related to that.
Yep.
For myself, as an understanding, so thanks for the whole story anyway. But the thing about lowest and highest part, I hadn't gotten into that myself apparently. But if I'm right, we only need that lowest policy. And not only depending on the highest when you're running things on-prem. I mean, in SaaS, I would think you're always on the highest anyway. Or is that a wrong thought?
Still, it could be a problem, because you need to not forget that if you, for example, release new version of the app, the customer don't need to have it installed yet, because the app version or the new version is installed when you request it manually or during the upgrade. And it means if it is app source app, for example, the environment is not forced to upgrade to latest version when this new version is released.
Oh yeah, so there could be a gap of some time that indeed you could have an issue there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
That's a problem. And when you then deploy your app, it will fail to deploy, because it will say, okay, it looks like all the dependencies are okay, but it will not compile because there are no function you want to use.
Yeah. Thank you. We're a little bit over time. Indeed, it was very tight, as you said. I'm going to show the last, my last slide for today. Of course, Kamil, thank you very much for this webinar. And yeah, as said, I'm going to put this as quickly as possible on Areopa channel on YouTube. Thanks everybody for having been here, and looking forward in 2 weeks' time to see you again on the show. You could say, everybody joining in. Good evening, good afternoon, good night to you all, and see you later. Thank you very much, Kamil.
You're welcome. Thanks, and see you somewhere. Bye.
Bye.